A quiet love tale that challenged the foundation of American civilization surfaced from the shadows during the stormy 1960s. An interracial couple named Richard and Mildred Loving found themselves in the middle of a judicial dispute that would change the definition of equality, marriage, and love. Richard and Mildred Loving, a couple whose quiet determination and unwavering devotion would challenge the very foundation of institutionalized racism and discrimination, from the quiet streets of Central Point, Virginia, to the hallowed halls of the Supreme Court, their love story unfolded against the backdrop of a nation grappling with the legacy of segregation and inequality. The 1960s were the time of seismic change in America.
I think that marrying who you want to is a right that no man should have anything to do with. It's a God-given right, I think.
Seismic change in America. The civil rights movement was full swing, challenging the entrenched racism and segregation that pervaded the country. Against this backdrop of social upheaval, the Lovings' love story unfolded a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The 14th Amendment, particularly the Equal Protection Clause, was a response to the injustices codified in black codes following the abolition of slavery. It aimed to prevent state governments from infringing on individual rights and reinforce the principle of equality under the law. The Loving, Virginia case exemplifies the ongoing tensions between government authority and individual freedoms, with both sides advocating for government intervention for different reasons. The 14th Amendment had been pivotal in shaping civil rights legislations, providing the legal basis for significant Supreme Court decisions such as Brown v. Board of Education. Preceding these cases, the Supreme Court's ruling in Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896 upheld racial segregation, laying the groundwork for state-sanctioned discrimination. However, the tide began to turn with the landmark ruling of Brown v. Board of Education in 1954, which declared segregation in public schools unconstitutional. This decision marked a significant victory for the civil rights movement and laid the groundwork for future legal challenges to racial discriminations. During the era before and during Loving v. Virginia, the Ku Klux Klan cast a long shadow over the American South, spreading fear and perpetuating racial violence. Emerging from the ashes of the Civil War, the Klan was reborn in the late 19th century as a white supremacist terrorist organization dedicated to upholding white supremacy and intimidating African Americans and their allies. The Klan's reign of terror reached its peak during the 1900s, coinciding with the Civil Rights Movement. Armed with a twisted ideology of racial purity and hatred, Klansmen engaged in acts of violence, including lynchings, bombings, and cross-burnings to instill fear and maintain white dominance. The Ku Klux Klan was a constant threat to safety and well-being of African Americans and anyone who dared to challenge the status quo. Their reign of terror sought to suppress the civil rights movement and preserve the oppressive systems of segregation and discrimination. Despite concerted efforts by law enforcement and civil rights organizations to combat the Ku Klux Klan's influence, the organization continued to wield considerable power in many southern communities, its members often operating with impunity, terrorized African American communities, and sought to undermine efforts toward racial. Richard and Mildred first crossed paths as children. Despite the racial tensions that plagued the segregated South, their bond blossomed into a deep and abiding love. Their courtship was marked by clandestine meetings and stolen moments, a testament to their unwavering commitment to each other in the face of societal prejudice. In 1958, Richard and Mildred traveled to Washington, D.C., where interracial marriage was legal, and exchanged vows in simple ceremony.
At 2 a.m. and I saw this light, and I woke up and it was the policeman standing beside the bed.
The joy was short-lived when they returned to Virginia and were arrested under the state's anti-miscegenation laws. Caroline County Police arrested the Lovings for marrying interracially and charged them with miscegenation, a felony carrying a potential 5-year prison sentence. The Judge Leon Bazile offered the suspended 1-year sentence on the condition that the couple leave Virginia for 25 years. This ruling was based on the Virginia Codes 2054 and 2058, which prohibited interracial marriage and out-of-state marriages with the intent of cohabit in Virginia. The original legislation, the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, defined a white person strictly by Caucasian ancestry, but later included the Pocahontas exception, allowing individuals with limited American Indian heritage to be considered white. This loophole was exploited by some. including Mildred Loving, whose racial identity was shaped by her community's racial politics, encouraging those with mixed African Indian heritage to identify as anything but black. The history of denying African ancestry was deeply ingrained, leading many to pass as white or attribute their complexions to American Indian heritage.
It's not so much of me, Richard, because we could go away, but it's the principle, it's the law. I don't think it's right.
The Lovings case challenged these racial laws, ultimately leading to the landmark Supreme Court decision in 1967 that struck down bans on interracial marriage nationwide. The Lovings' legal battle began in earnest when they enlisted the help of civil rights attorney Bernard Cohen and Philip Hirschkopf to challenge Virginia's discriminatory laws. The case Loving v. Virginia reached the highest court in the land, where the justice unanimously ruled in favor of the Lovings, declaring that marriage is a fundamental right that cannot be denied on the basis of race.
Came after us the 14th of July. We were married a month and a few days.
Mrs. Loving, what has been the worst part about all this for you?
Well, I guess the worst thing that was spending a little time in jail. That's the worst thing.
People were against the Loving v. Virginia case primarily because it challenged deeply ingrained societal norms and legal structures that upheld racial segregation and discrimination. Many individuals and institutions held prejudiced beliefs about social superiority and believed that interracial marriage threatened these beliefs. Additionally, some opponents of Loving v. Virginia case cited religious and cultural reasons for their oppositions, viewing interracial marriage as morally wrong and against their traditional values.
That they were poor and low class, as the sheriff say they were, but they had determination.
In the immediate aftermath of the Supreme Court's ruling in 1967, Loving v. Virginia struck down anti-miscegenation laws in 16 states, effectively legalizing interracial marriage nationwide. This landmark decision marked a decisive victory for civil rights and individual liberty, affirming the principles that the right to marry is a fundamental freedom guaranteed to all Americans. Moreover, the Loving v. Virginia challenged prevailing notions of racial purity and supremacy, debunking the myth of suffered but equal and dismantling the legal framework that upheld segregation and discrimination. The case served as a clarion call for equality, inspiring marginalized communities to demand justice and assert their rights in the face of institutionalized racism. The case served as a catalyst for broader movement for marriage equality and LGBTQ+ rights. Inspired by the Loving struggle, activists sought to dismantle discriminatory laws and push for legal recognition of same-sex relationships. The Stonewall riots occurring in June 1969 at the Stonewall Inn in New York City were a series of demonstrations by LGBTQ+ individuals resisting police harassment and discrimination. Led primarily by transgender women of color, the riots sparked a movement for LGBTQ+ rights, inspiring activism, advocacy group, and pride marches worldwide. This tireless activism eventually led to a historic moment in 2015 when the Supreme Court delivered its ruling on the Obergefell v. Hodges, legalizing same-sex marriage nationwide. This landmark decision affirmed the principles of equality and dignity for all individuals, marking a significant step toward the fight for LGBTQ+ rights. The Lovings' courageous stand against injustice continues to inspire generations, reminding us of the power of love to overcome prejudice and discrimination. The impact of Loving v. Virginia extends far beyond the realm of marriage, influencing broader movements for social justice and equality. The case served as a catalyst to change, sparking conversations about race, identity, and the meaning of family in America. Today, the principles enshrined in Loving v. Virginia continue to shape our understanding of equality and individual liberty. The case stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of love to conquer hate. Loving v. Virginia remains as a cornerstone for constitutional law, reminding us that the Constitution is a living document that evolves with society. The case reaffirmed the principle that all individuals